Thank you very much for making time with me on the marketplace today. Welcome back. President Akufo-Addo has re-emphasized government's commitment to ensuring fiscal discipline. He mentioned the establishment of a fiscal council and the achievement of a single-digit inflation rate of 7.6% in September, among others. He noted prudent macroeconomic policy management remains a priority for government's economic management team. The president was speaking at the opening of the 8th edition of the Ghana Economic Forum here in Accra.
If we are to realize our vision of a Ghana beyond aid, that is a Ghana no longer dependent on the benevolence or charity of foreign taxpayers and donors for the management of her public finances, we must change course. Hence the establishment of the Presidential Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council. Ghana is now the only other country in sub-Saharan Africa to establish a fiscal council after the Republic of Mauritius. The council, composed of eminent economists, is headed by a former vice president of the IMF and former governor of the Bank of Ghana, the distinguished public servant, Dr. Paul Akwa, whose remit is to advise the president on ensuring compliance with fiscal law, rules, and targets, which include a budget deficit of not more than 5% of GDP, a positive primary balance, and a debt-to-GDP ratio of not more than 65%, as provided by law, the first time such a law has been enacted in our history. I am committed to fiscal rectitude becoming an essential feature of our DNA in the management of our public finances and national economy. And in the last 2 years, has been among the world's fastest growing economies. Indeed, the IMF projects Ghana's economy this year to have one of the world's highest growth rates of 7.6%. Inflation for September stood at 7.6% in single digits, the lowest in over 2 decades. Our exports are growing healthily. Our trade balance, for the first time in more than a decade, recorded a surplus in 2017, maintained it in 2018, and we expect to maintain the surplus for this year as well. We've brought the fiscal deficit down to 4.5%. Our external reserves as of June 2019 stood at 4.3 months of import cover. All our macroeconomic indices are pointing in the right direction, and it comes as no surprise, therefore.
Meanwhile, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, noted that all gains made in achieving the macroeconomic stability must be sustained.
It's incumbent on us as policymakers to demonstrate strong commitment to this policy framework in the near term to ensure that the gains achieved so far are sustained. Achieving macroeconomic stability takes deliberate policies, sacrifices, and resources which, if not sustained, can easily unravel. I believe this is one of the reasons why we have gathered here to get a sense of the policy direction needed to sustain the environment going forward. Your Excellency, I can report that under your leadership, the policies that we have put in place since 2017 are yielding the right results. The economic indicators are good in terms of inflation, external account balances, reserves, GDP growth, and business confidence. We have not only made significant gains in stability through prudent monetary and fiscal policies, but also in regulatory and structural reforms, particularly in the banking sector.
And in another development, the 2018 State of Ghana's Economy Report has been launched with a call on government to relook its tax exemption regime. Director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Korte, laments the huge tax exemptions doled to multinationals and large corporations will have a drain on the country's economic outlook if not checked. There's more in this report.
The Institute of Statistical and Social Economic Research, ISA, in the State of Ghana's Economy Report, cited import tax exemptions as a major threat to domestic revenue mobilization. In 2018 alone, import exemptions increased to 33.6% of total revenue, making up to 4.2 billion cedis. Presenting excerpts of the State of the Ghanaian Economy report for 2018, Director of ISA, Professor Peter Quarty, warned that a trend of tax exemptions could paint a dark picture for Ghana's revenue mobilization in the coming years.
Our usual suspects, the tax exemptions, which I think we need to look at closely. And then there are also several challenges which negatively affect smooth usage of digital technologies as introduced.
Senior Research Fellow of ISA, Dr. Charles Aka, advocated a review of the various ambitious projects being embarked upon as Ghana's public debt soars and domestic revenue shrinks. He fears that most government projects are just a drain on public coffers.
How does government gain efficiency in spending? And I think it's time for us to have a national discussion about some of the government flagship programs. Given that we don't have the resources, we are missing all the revenue targets, we want to go beyond 8, and we are not able to raise enough tax revenue in this country. We need to discuss free SHS again. We need to discuss the issue of NAPCO, whether that is a sustainable way of creating jobs and all the people we put there and we are paying them. We need to discuss some of the ministries that we have set up to see whether they still need to exist. What is the Ministry for Inner City and Zongo Development? Is it really relevant? What are they doing? We need to have a discussion about the Ministry of Evaluation. Ministry of Evaluation, what are they evaluating? We need to have a discussion about the Ministry for Regional Reorganization and all the amount of money we are spending there. We need to discuss about the Ministry of Development. What are they developing? Can Ministry of Trade do the work that they are doing? We need to have a discussion about the Ministry of Transport, Railways and Aviation. Do we need to have 3 different ministries, or can one ministry do aviation, transport and railways? And we need to talk about the Ministry of Special Development Initiatives and all the 3 development authorities that have been put there. So no, we need to have a discussion about controlling expenditure and gaining efficiency in our expenditure.
Meanwhile, the 2018 ISA State of the Nations report has also commended government's digitization agenda, saying it has improved port efficiency as well as deepened financial inclusion.
Now, the Amara Bank has seen a 16% increase in customer deposits in the wake of the banking sector reforms. Officials say it is evidence of revived public confidence, which waned after the banking sector reforms. CEO of the bank, Dr. Safo Kantanka, acknowledges challenges that came with the regulatory measures, but is confident of the long-term benefits. Nanaya Ojima was at the 36th annual general meeting of the bank and has filed this report.
Amara Bank's third quarter performance for 2019 recorded over 16% growth in deposit mobilization. Until the period under review, mobile bankers especially had it tough receiving deposits from the banking public. Dr. Kantanka observes, though the challenge of locked up funds in some distressed institutions is yet to be fully addressed, the sector is gradually regaining confidence.
Every good thing has got its own negative things, but I think that generally, the positive aspects will far outweigh the negative consequences. Now, even though some people have lost their jobs, I believe that after some time things will be okay. So the financial sector is going to see an improvement, especially with the rural banks. Initially, what we had was that there were rumors here and there with other false information, but we tried as much as possible to explain to people that the rural banks are strong, they are resilient. I've said it several times.
Kantanka believes rural banks have a role to play in sustaining the process by improving the sector. Especially
what we need to do is to ensure that we provide good quality service. And we need to go with technology. Now, digitization is the order of the day. So if we stay and want to do things the old ways, we will not be able to move up. There must be a paradigm shift from the way we're doing things. And even with customer service, we have to bring in new things that will attract more customers to us.
Patrick also sees a healthy banking sector environment next year on the back of reforms by regulators.
The main purpose of setting up the rural banks was to reach out to the unbanked people, mostly in the rural areas. You know, in Ghana, most of our people are in the rural areas, and that is where the money is. All the cocoa farmers are basically in the rural areas, and we have a lot of businesses that goes on in the rural areas. So rural banks were first established to reach out to our people in the rural areas, and this is exactly what we have done. And look, in the mornings, most of the trucks that move from the rural areas to the cities and the urban areas, these farmers come and sell their wares. Yes, we are chasing them.
Jima reporting.
Let's turn our attention to trade issues now. Nigerian High Commissioner to Ghana, Olufere Michael Abikoye, is urging the Nigerian Union of Traders Association to expose members who flout the laws of Ghana. He believes such a stance is crucial to sustaining peaceful coexistence between the two countries. Mr. Abikoye was speaking at an interactive session with the Ashanti Regional Security Council in Kumasi.
Mr. Abikoye is worried some Nigerians are known to be engaging in these businesses in Ghana, creating tension between them and their host.
Don't allow the Judas to mess you up in where? In Kumasi. Don't cover them. Our current foreign reserve is about $46 billion. We have not been able to sufficiently feed ourselves in rice to about 85%. The transmission is going on. The government is facing security, economy, and corruption at all costs. I'm giving you this in order to round up my discussion about you. So what do I want from you? I started by praising you that you are law-abiding. You must continue to be what? Law-abiding. If you are not law-abiding, I won't come here again. Until I go back to Abuja, if I discover you are no longer law-abiding, you will not see me here again. So continue to be law-abiding.
Ashanti Regional Chairman of UTAC, Chief Kizito Ikechukwu Obiara, called for steps to iron out differences that militate against the peaceful coexistence with Ghanaian counterparts.
Based on the aspect of JIPC law that tends to differentiate areas we as Nigerians and indeed foreigners are allowed to operate. In all of this, we have never lost hope that Ghana and Nigeria can actually achieve much more if we can begin to sincerely work together. We have never lost hope that a day will come when these two countries can become the toast of many other nations in the world. We have all the resources and the intellectual capacity to make this happen.
Chukwuemeka Naji bemoaned what he calls high cost of business registration and resident work permit acquisition. In a speech read on his behalf, he says the situation is very frustrating and demoralizing, especially for prospective Nigerian traders.
They have not made it a policy now. I think that is I don't know where it's coming from, that we must get $500 work permit a year. So if you are requiring 3 years resident permit, you are paying $1,500. For an average trader, it is very difficult. It is very, very difficult. And non-citizen ID card, $120 and $60 every year. I wonder what we have, what we enjoy as ECOWAS. And I saw when the regional chairman of Nutago mentioned foreigners. I want to believe that he was just being jovial, because as a citizen of ECOWAS, we are community citizens. Yes, we are foreigners in certain aspect of Ghanaian life, but we are ECOWAS citizens. For goodness sake, I want the authority here to make things. In Nigeria, resident permit is 6,000 naira. Before it was 3,500 naira for ECOWAS.
Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Debra.
Meanwhile, the Register General's Department has reminded the public that with a minimum fee of $1 million, foreigners can engage in retail business in the country. At today's sensitization program on the New Companies Act in Sunyani, the Registrar General in charge of Ashanti, Bono East and Ahafo regions, Nanama Achia Prempe, says there are some restrictions to what foreigners can trade in and called on indigenous business operators to be abreast of the act to avoid confrontations with foreigners doing legitimate business. Here's a report by Bono Regional Correspondent, Precious Semevo.
The Registrar General's Department is the officially mandated government agency for the registration of businesses, marriages, industrial property and the administration of estates. However, in a bid to facilitate business operations and improve quality of service, the department is to be decoupled under the New Companies Act. There will now be a registrar of companies separated from the Registrar General's Department. The New Companies Act, Act 992, passed in May 2019, replaces the 1963 version and meets modern trends of doing business. Speaking to Joy Business after a day's workshop to sensitize stakeholders about the new act, the Registrar General in charge of Ashanti, Bono East and Ahafo regions, Amara Bank, explains some notable reforms when the act starts operation in about 24 months.
We now have an e-portal where you can do your registration online. Under the new act, it's now backed by law. Now we are even only going to issue only one incorporation certificate. The commencement certificate has been done away with. The Commissioner for Oath, you don't need that. But we have beefed up the compliance issues under the new act. Yes. The Registrar General is the official liquidator for public companies. But you could appoint the Registrar General to liquidate your company for you. But now under the new act, the company can itself appoint a liquidator, inform the Registrar of Companies about it, and they can go ahead. It makes it easier.
Recently, there have been agitations by local traders against foreigners taking over the retail market in Ghana. Amara Bank explains the conditions foreigners must satisfy in the new act before engaging in retail businesses.
It's not retailing per se that foreigners are not allowed to do. There are specific areas which are reserved for Ghanaians. Apart from that, if a foreigner wants to engage in retailing business in Ghana, the law allows him or her to, so long as the capital is not below $1 million. That is the minimum requirement for a foreigner to engage in retail or commercial activity in the country. So that sort of stops them from doing petty trading, so that the average Ghanaian whose capital is 10,000 or 20,000 is protected.
Some participants said the New Companies Act will help curb corrupt practices.
The new act will contribute to various efforts in curbing corruption in our country, because we are all of the view that, most especially with the registration of beneficial owners, we will be able to track people who have subsequent businesses of which previously we were not keeping track on.
One update to you on one of our top stories now. And Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, has locked up 2 firms in Accra for defaulting in payments of taxes to the tune of over 6 million Ghana cedis. The company's Intelligent Metering Company and Energy Solutions work closely with the Electricity Company of Ghana. The action is part of the GRA's random operations to identify, name and shame tax businesses which have persistently defaulted in paying taxes. It's also part of efforts by the GRA to meet its 2019 revenue target. My colleague Fred Duho is with the team, or has been with the team. He joins us via Skype for some updates. Fred, welcome to the Marketplace.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel.
All right, so what can you tell us about the action that was taken by the GRA today?
Yeah, earlier today, the GRA was at the East Legon Enclave, where they have to actually close down one particular office by name Intelligent. Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, Emmanuel. So they were at the East Legon Enclave today, where they have to lock up the offices of the Intelligent Metering and Energy Solutions which is a private firm that engages in electrical works. They owe the GRA sum of about 6 million Ghana cedis.
Okay.
So this morning they were there. Earlier they moved to Micklin Hotel, and the Micklin Hotel they owe about 2.8 million Ghana cedis. So I must say the last stop of the exercise was at the International Trade Fair Center, where actually the people that they were supposed to meet, which is Excel Courier Limited, they were owing about 9.95 million Ghana cedis. And I must say they met the absence of the managers of this particular company. So they had no option than to leave without working that particular office. But one very interesting thing is that at the Micklin Hotel, the managers of that particular hotel mobilized, and they raised a check amounting to 1 million Ghana cedis to settle part payment or to settle partly their debt owed the GRA. So far the activity has been smooth. We've come to the end of today's exercise, and they are saying this exercise will continue until the total debt of 2.7 billion Ghana cedis is retrieved from debtors in the country.
All right, many thanks for that update. Fred, who is my colleague, he's been reacting to or bringing us up to speed with some developments which took place by the GRA earlier in the day, where two firms were said to have been locked up for defaulting in tax payments. We'll bring you more on that in our subsequent bulletins. But for now, that's it for the marketplace. My name is Emmanuel Apwaji. We have a good afternoon.